I'm going to call the landfill committee meeting to at 11:01 a.m. And Sherry, since you redid your day for us, can you please say the pledge? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just as a reminder, I'm supposed to, actually, I'm gonna let Terry explain it, the camera angles again, since Sherry wasn't here last time.
Sherry knows about this yesterday.
Okay, does she? All right,
Everybody knows about the security camera. or the security
Okay.
the actual-
camera angle.
Show my eye rolling.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so, can we get a roll call? Sandy.
You gotta
Roll.
put her on.
Oh, she's 12. Is mic on? Got it.
Butler,
Here.
Balich,
Here.
Newquist,
Here.
Parker, Pretzel, Van Dyne,
Present.
Dean Schlotman. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, there are no minutes, since, but wait, oh, from June, but we do have, minutes from May, so can I get a motion for the approval of the May 2nd? Roll call, please, Sandy.
Butler,
Yes.
Balich,
Yes.
Newquist,
Yes.
Pretzel,
Yes.
Van Dyne,
Yes.
Dean Schlotman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and so as of now, I want to skip new business and get to some questions to be answered before we discuss the solid waste plan.
You're skipping.
So I'm skipping old business, I'm sorry.
Start.
And I'm going to start with my, with new business, and we have some questions. So, Mr. Harkey, would you like to come up as we go through them? So you can kind of help answer. Let me make sure I can get your mic on. All right, so, I know that, we've discussed, different aspects of the landfill and, things that may go on. So I guess at this time, some of the questions that, the committee has, that I have are, how many properties and location, has the consultant considered for the expansion of the landfill?
I'd say more so at this point, it'd be appropriate to just introduce you to the consultants. We have Devin Moose here from Geologic. We do have Mr. Chuck Helston from Henshaw and Culbertson, and his partner Rick Porter also here.
They're welcome to come up, but I guess that my question is, how many properties have been looked at?
Our primary focus has been our landfill parcel itself.
Right, and then have any other parcels been looked at?
There have been some other options that we have been considering. As far as the exact number of parcels, I'm not sure what that number of parcels actually is. Probably an aggregate of 4 or 5 perhaps.
Or if, and are they in different locations around the county?
These are all contiguous.
They're all contiguous within one area.
Yes.
Okay. Who determined, who was the authority on determining which properties were looked at? Who made that decision?
Well, as part of just vetting out possible options to propose and to bring those forward, it was more of a practical sense to have parcels that would.
So
be-
I guess then my question still is, who did that? Because nobody came to the committee and said, hey, these are the properties we want to look at. These are the areas, which is my understanding is what's supposed to happen. That's the whole purpose of the landfill committee. So if there's already been determination in certain areas for the landfill, none of that came before the committee, and the committee never voted on which areas those would be.
Well, this,
Chairman,
Mr. Helston, come on up.
good morning.
Good morning.
Be brief. I was taught a long time ago not to say anything more than I have to. Okay. Going to your question is, I think in one Zoom call that I had with you and the speaker and Ms. Pladhammer, I told you that, because you asked good questions that day, you asked a number of them. In addition to the on-site expansion, which Madam Chairman, you just mentioned, there had been talk, in the preliminary stage, there had been discussion about, well, should we look at expansion into an adjacent area? Okay. Those are, I think the number one, Mr. Moose, to answer your question, was the person tasked by the executive branch to look at possibilities. The reason he does that, he did that is that's what he does for the industry.
So, Mr. Helston, I'm just going to interrupt you right there. We understand what Mr. Moose's job is. I understand that he is one that comes up with designs and different ways to present the landfill. But from my understanding, it is only within one location at this point. We haven't received any other options.
Here's why, if I may. Okay. He also, in addition to being very good at design, his firm is, and his team of 8 or 9 people are a preeminent national team in selection of sites, looking at feasibility of selection at landfill sites, transfer station sites, biofuel sites, those type of sites. That's why he was asked by the executive branch to look at
But
sites.
Mr. Helston, to
Yes.
that, isn't it, you stated before that that still is something that the committee needs to decide? You've stated that yourself.
It's, if I may, I was almost there.
Okay.
Okay. It's very preliminary now for several reasons. We're not sure, based on certain legal considerations and restrictions on use of property, whether or not eventually that
So
can be-
is the restrictions come from JADA? Is that what we're still worried about? Are we waiting for that to be okay when
We're
JADA
look-
expires?
We're looking at that. We don't want to get, again, there's confidentiality that was assigned to us by the people that own those, and we said we would honor the confidentiality because it's very tentative. It may go nowhere. That's why it hasn't come yet to the committee. I can assure you, when I get to the point where I know whether it's legally feasible or not, you will be the first people.
At
Because
this
this,
point, it sounds like we're not the first people because it sounds like we're already moving forward in one direction. And we are being told that this is the direction we're going instead of
it's,
giving us options.
it's very preliminary. That's why, because it may go nowhere. We don't
So
want to,
other options should come forward.
we don't want to waste your time if at this threshold point, this 30,000 foot point, this 15,000 foot point, this 10,000 foot point, whatever you want to call it, we don't want to waste your time. Your time is valuable if it's not feasible. Once we know it's feasible, then we will come to you because there's a combination of one or more, and I can't say any more because again, we pledge confidentiality to the adjacent landowners. There's one or more of 5 parcels that could possibly.
All
be
within the same area.
All within the same area. That's right. So that's the
All
long and
owned by the same entity.
don't want to divulge that because again, because of confidentiality pledges that we have given at this point in time to even get into discussions, as you probably are well aware. Sometimes you don't even get into threshold discussions unless you give confidentiality pledges.
Mr. Helston,
Yes, ma'am.
the chair has allowed me to ask this question without divulging any of the confidentiality that you are speaking of. You are indicating to this committee that you are exploring an option and you're going to wait and see if it's feasible. And if it is feasible, then you're going to bring that single option to this committee. And that currently you are exploring no other options.
Exactly. Thank you, Ms. Flathead. You'll be the
So,
first, you'll be
if-
the,
If that doesn't work out, then you're starting from scratch again.
yes, because what's doable now, okay, as I think I indicated to you three ladies, Ms. Flathammer, Madam Chairman, and to the speaker, what's doable right now, time's of the essence. So what's doable right now is citing and expanding your own property. That's doable right now. That's what you should focus on right now because you can get your hands around that right now. And we might as well go into that briefly. I don't want to hold you up but I want to answer your questions. I want to give you answers. As I indicated to you before, and this is just an aside, I am always available. I will leave business cards. I have two types of business cards. I'll leave them here right now. If I have them, I have them somewhere.
Yes.
Um,
I'm going to let Ms. Flanhammer ask another question.
Yes, ma'am.
And then.
Time is of the essence. Why are you not exploring other options in the event that this one will not be feasible?
Because this one is logical, because one or more of the 5 parcels that are more or less adjacent to the existing landfill dovetail in very nicely into the existing landfill. And here's why. It's a good question, Ms. Flathammer. Here's why. There are 9 siting criterion that must be satisfied before this county board could give site location approval, okay? They deal in large part with minimization of impacts, minimization of noise, minimization of dust, minimization of odor, minimization of traffic, those type of things, and also
So
safety.
I guess in this situation, we realize that this one area where this landfill is right now, all of that has been done. So obviously all those 9 criteria are probably met in this area. But to my point saying, and especially if you're saying that time is of the essence, if this particular area does not work out, even if we go up with this landfill, we have no other option then if this doesn't go through correctly. And we're already behind. That's what you had told us. So I guess my question is why within the timeframes that we have, if we are just going with this one area and say it fails, then are we just going to look at a different area somewhere else at that time and just this one area and go through all of this? And it seems like then that fell through, we would have to go somewhere else and it will just take more and more time as opposed to looking and seeing if there are other options. Maybe the city of Wilmington's done with landfills. That's a question that we don't even know if they'll have at this point in time. Maybe they want it, maybe they don't. Maybe there's another area within Will County that would want this for whatever reason. And we're not going forward and asking further questions.
Then you should, as I said, if we go with a modest vertical expansion, and if we can couple that with a horizontal, taking off the dirt pile and utilizing the additional 25 to 28 acres there, on a modest vertical, you gain 15 more years. On a modest vertical, you gain 15 more years in addition to the 9 existing you have. So that's 24. Adding a horizontal of 7 onto that, that's 31. That's a lot of years, which allow you, that's a lot of breathing time to allow you to explore the adjacent properties or other ones. Now, what Mr. Moose's firm, as I told you, they've done it in conjunction with me for applicants in the Midwest. They're very good at it. They've done it in counties in Northern Illinois. We have tasked them to find other sites, and they have done an exemplary job in 2 other counties of finding 4 or 5 alternate sites that landfills would be ideal locations for landfills. You can task them to do that if you want to, because they're very good at that.
Right. And so that would be something that the committee should
Yes.
task them with.
Yeah.
But the committee did not task them with that. Somebody else did. And so I guess that was why we were curious as to who made the decision that this was the only location that we were looking
If-
at.
The executive branch
The
saying,
executive, okay.
executive branch saying to, and, you know, and I know there's acrimony back and forth. Let's put it out on the table. There's acrimony back and forth. It's not
So-
unusual. I've dealt with that for 40 some years in dealing with government. But generally, the executive branch, as I indicated the first time I
Okay.
talked to this good group, does the threshold planning. That's by law, that's their job. Your job, as I indicated, is to look at the things that are presented to you and make the ultimate policy decisions. You are the group that looks at those and goes, yeah, or maybe, or no. That's your job.
I'm
But
gonna
first,
let,
something has to be formulated to put in front of you for you to make an educated and informed decision as to where you want to go from there. Does that mean that Mr. Moose and I plan it 80% of the way or 9? No, we give you what we think is a feasible conceptual plan. And then you take it and run with it. Let's say that's 30 or 40%, something like that. It's your job as policymakers for this county and under the Illinois County Code, it's your job then to take it and run with it and finish it out. That's your job.
correct. Ms. Newquist, go ahead, Member Newquist.
Thank you. So I just want to kind of summarize what I think you're saying, and I have a question you may not be able to answer yet. So the way I look at it, there's three possibilities here. One is we get out of the landfill business altogether, and I don't think we want to do that because we have the RNG plant. So that leaves us with either expanding the current landfill or picking a complete brand new site for a brand new landfill. So, and I'm talking theoretical here.
Yeah.
So my question is, given the time constraint that we're under, is it even feasible at this point in time to consider a brand new site for a new landfill where none exists right now? Because if it's not feasible, then I think we're better off.
It's very tenuous. That's why I said, why not take what you have that you can deal with right now and the vertical expansion alone, a modest, not a drastic one, a modest one that's compatible with the surrounding area. Mr. Moose and I have had to do Criterion 3 studies for 40 years and make sure that we're applicants and make sure, and they were accepted for 40 years to make sure that it's compatible with the surrounding area. Do a modest, as I've indicated before in conversations with leadership, okay? Do a modest vertical expansion. My suggestion is a modest vertical, but here's the engineer, here's the design expert. He's done them all over the country. Do a modest vertical expansion that gets you 15 years, 15.5 years, add it on to 9, okay? That's 24.5. Look at the feasibility of moving the soil to a nearby site at a cost of less than the initial
Right.
threshold estimate of 6 to 8 million, which I shared openly.
And I think we've discussed these before, Mr. Helston, like all of that. So I think we're trying to move through getting,
For me, what would be really helpful, sorry.
oh, hold on, let me get her.
I think for me, what would be really helpful is an indication from you guys that in 9 years, there's no way we're gonna get a new landfill from scratch somewhere. Because if that's the case, then we do really need to focus our efforts on expanding the existing landfill, and that narrows our range of choices significantly.
I'm going to give it to the landfill design engineer
Member
because
Balich, did you have a question?
Yeah. I get it. You guys got a lot of experience and, and I've been told that Mr. Moose is one of the top environmental engineers around,
Spoke to my mom.
probably. But, when anyone tells me that I'm gonna be like watching, Channel 2 News or Channel 7 News, that I don't need to know all of the information, that makes me want to know why. So when you say we're gonna come to you with the final thing,
no, I didn't say.
yes, you did.
No,
You said that
no,
you're
I-
gonna,
no,
you
I
guys
didn't.
will determine where it will go. And And no one's telling me why you can't go pick another place in the county and do two at once. I mean, we tried to hire a consultant that could work with us to help us through these problems, and it didn't get through.
Got vetoed.
So now you're gonna have to deal with this committee, and I'm one of them people that you have to tell me every single step of the way what you're doing, why, and why you're not doing something else that somebody on this committee wants. And if you're gonna say it's confidential or any of that crap, we go to executive session. So I'm just saying that you're gonna see a problem from pretty much all of us if you're gonna be just deciding what we know and what we don't know. Well, okay, from a portion of us. I'm not gonna sit back and listen to you say, well, we're gonna explore our options, and then when we figure it all out, we'll bring it to you.
Now
Well, I
preliminary.
want to know what all the options are. I want to know all the dollars and cents around it. I want to know, when you're saying 9 years, how long is it going to take? How many of the 9 years do we lose in the process of expanding? So, I mean, and then we also went against the solid waste plan going back in time. Why are we, there's all these questions that we have, that I have, and I don't want to hear, well, we can't talk about it, or it's confidential, or we're going to wait until you bring the important things that were all solved by the engineers and everybody else there. I want to know what they are. I'm not an idiot. I can go through, I can listen, and I can make my own determination by what you say. And so I'm just telling you, going forward, when you tell us, well, we're going to do this, then we'll bring it to you. You're going to work with the executive branch. You got to go through this committee, not the executive branch. We vote for this. So I'm going to stop talking right now, and I don't need a response. I'm just telling you how I feel, because you're going to hear a lot from me going forward, because I'm frustrated already.
Well, I'll give you a response, as I've given you over the years, Mr. Balich, when you picked up the phone and called me before, and we've talked about things you may recall or you may not recall, that you have picked up the phone, called me, which is your right as a county.
I don't
board.
even recall it.
Well, I do, they're memorable, okay? So I recall them distinctly, okay? Again, there's a point in time with anything, when somebody comes up to you and tells you, I want to tell you about this. It has to be fairly ripe. It can't be at such a premature phase that it doesn't make any sense to talk to you. But I will tell every member of this committee, there are things, when I say confidential, that we cannot say in open session, and maybe not even an executive session, because it may not fall within the scope of a express exception in the Open Meetings Act. Does that mean I don't want to talk to any of you? No, as I said from day one, the first meeting I was here, you're the policymakers. What you do, Mr. Balich, is I can talk to any one of you individually. If you pick up the phone or email me or text me, I can talk to any one of you, and I'd be glad to talk to you. I'd be glad to talk to anybody about where we are. I've always admired your enthusiasm and your conviction, okay? And that's why I've always enjoyed going back and forth with you, even though at times over the years, it seems maybe like it's been friction. Not for me. I admire your conviction, okay?
Mr. Helston, thank you. I'm going to let Member Butler ask his question, and then Member Van Dyne, you're next.
Okay. I just am curious, on the one location that you picked for the expansion, or to research for the expansion, if that location was chosen, and maybe this is better asked of the state's attorney, does this allow us for this rest of this project to go out to bid?
I can answer the question. I would do it. Here's the way I would do it. The way we did it the first time around.
You know, just
I-
for the sake of time, I'm one of those people, if you could just say yes or no, and then any explanation after that, I would be fine with.
Later, because I think what Member Butler is asking, if we are at the point where we are talking about this one individual area, and this is where,
You could RFP it, as we did before.
as right,
That's my,
as of right now,
that's,
that's a
no,
yes.
once we get it, there's nothing to RFP before you get it. But then you would cite yourself rather than last time around. It was the determination of the county board that Waste Management would cite it because they had won the RFP and won the contract. This time around, what you could do is cite it yourself, secure a discernible legal interest so you can be a citing applicant, cite it yourself, and then issue an RFP to the universe, to all the waste companies. That's competitive. That's where you're going to get the best bid. Does that answer your question, Mr.
So in
Bell?
other words, yes. Yeah, Mr. Moose, did you have?
Yeah, I
something
think
to-
just 3 minutes or so is all I
Yeah,
need.
okay, sure.
The answer is if we had a
Don't
greenfield
make
site
me look-
that was discontinuous or non-contiguous to our site, could we get it done in 9 years? The answer to that is probably. We've been tracking every siting in Illinois for the last 25 years. The average is 9 years. Some are getting done quicker, some are getting done slower. Really depends on the uniqueness of the site. I was charged 25, 30 years ago for finding a landfill site for the county. I'm the one that selected and found the Arsenal site. And at the time, it was an active Army ammunition base. At this particular project, like anything, what's the easiest, least cumbersome thing to do? That's expanding vertically on the existing landfill. And I've come up with several scenarios for that. The next easiest is finding a parcel nearby to move the soil stockpile. It's still your property, but the amount of property that you'd have to acquire is less. We came up with 3 or 4
Right.
conceptual designs for that. The next easiest is to acquire property contiguous to the Arsenal site. We did not count the prairie, but there is contiguous property that's privately owned next to the site, and we came up with several designs for that. We also said there might be another place in the county that's better, or there might not be a place in the county that's better.
And at this time, you were not instructed to
I have not looked
put a
beyond
plan
the-
beyond that area. You
Correct.
were only told by the executive's office to look at this one area.
correct.
Thank you.
Just to finish off, I'm always focused not just on the safety, but what's best financially for the
Right.
county. The most financially attractive thing would be a separate facility contiguous to the existing facility. That would allow, that's been cited by the county, that would allow landfill operators from around the country to bid on this. That's taken away the tough part. It also allows them to then start a hauling business in the county, which would increase more competition, and it would not interfere with the contractual requirements of waste management and the RNG site.
Thank you. Member Van Dyne, let me turn you on. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in this morning, and I just want to lay this out here for everyone to understand, in my opinion. There's some members on this committee that is not happy from the fact that you gentlemen are hired by the county executive and you are answering to them. There's members on this committee that wants to hire their own consultant. Until we can come up as a board to figure out a solution to this, I think there's going to be friction. Not so much from me, but other members. Let's just call it how it is. They want you to say that you were hired by the county executive and you answer the county executive. I think we've done that at this committee right here, right now. I suggest we move on.
Sure, there's other questions. I have.
Also, before I finish, this committee decided to build a $60 million or $65 million RNG plant.
This
to-
committee didn't do that. The county board did that. This committee didn't exist when the RNG plant was
Okay,
put
tit for
together.
tat, county board, members of this committee are on the county board. If you want to correct me for that, I understand. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Anyway, there's no reason to discuss this anymore. This is nonsense. Let's get our answers and let's move forward, please. Thank you.
Sure, right. Just for clarification, it wasn't the county executive, it's the state's attorney that you work through, correct?
I work to this, yeah,
State's
both of
attorney.
us work,
Okay,
but we
That's-
work in conjunction
Good.
naturally with the county executives.
which makes sense,
with-
right?
With office to put the preliminary constructs. When people say we work for the state's attorney or the county executive, we are retained by them, but we work for
Or
all of
the-
you.
Right,
We work, and where Mr. Moose and I at any time are willing to talk to any of you where it can remain confidential. It's not only because of adjoining landowners, and I'll end this too. You have people that don't want an expansion. You want people that want to frustrate your efforts. And the more you say in public, the more you hurt your own cause. That's why we can talk. There's nothing that prevents us from talking to you individually. It's simply where there's a Open Meetings Act requirement that we have to watch what we say.
well, since we know that this is like one particular site location, I don't think if we were looking for other site locations, that would be the issue. I just, as the member of this committee, when we're only talking about one area, even though it seems to make the most sense, sometimes what seems to be is not perfect for the entire project. So when this is going to come to the committee, because eventually, no matter what goes on, it will. This is the only option the committee has to discuss. And
Right now-
that is what I think is concerning to me and some of the other members of the committee. To that, if I could, since there are no other, is one of the only reasons that we are maybe waiting to move forward in this area is because of the legal restrictions on some of the property through JADA? Is what holding us up? And does anyone know when JADA expires?
We're still analyzing. We have to look and then we have to interact. That'll be done very soon. If the legal restrictions cannot be worked around, then it's game over on those sites. Then that's why we don't want to bring it to you until we know if the potential legal impediment can be resolved. After that, it's either game over or we got to move forward. In the interim, if you want to look at other sites, as I said before, charge Mr. Moose with a site selection project in Will County. He said he could do 1 in 9 years. He picked this one originally when he and I were retained in the early 90s by Will County. Once the Base Closure Act came through, he picked this site and it served you very, very well. He's worked with me to pick ideal sites in other parts of Northern Illinois in the Chicago metro area. That's what he's an expert at. Charge him now to do that. Task him now to do that. He can do it.
Thank you for that, Mr. Helston. Within this range of properties, are there any other properties that would be located that we would not have to enter into a host agreement with? Are we going to have to enter a host agreement with these
Possibly. That's all I can say. Possibly.
Okay.
We're getting into again, we say too much,
Got it.
you're gonna scare away, you're gonna defeat your own purpose.
I think the better question is, in the analysis by Mr. Moose of the appropriateness of this piece of contiguous property, does it take into consideration the potential cost for a host agreement with either a property owner or a village or a city?
I could answer, but I'll let him.
Our analysis identified.
Hold on. No, that's it.
Our analysis identified the possibility of numerous things, but it didn't quantify it.
Because it's too early yet, but there is a possibility of both a host agreement with, we already have one with the Wilmington area entities, as you know, an intergovernmental agreement. It may modify that one. There may be a host agreement with a private entity too.
Member Ogala, did you want to ask something? Sure, Chair.
I'll be happy to speak.
Sorry, Chair.
So here's the whole thing. There are people on this board who have very close relationships with the county executive's office. I see them go back there in groups, have conversations, come out, and then defend them right here on the floor, saying the other people are not in favor of this. The problem is, other people have questions because everything has been kept hush hush. We have to form a landfill committee. So I don't know how many hoops we have to go through, how many months it took, 3, 4, 5 months to get a landfill committee finally started. Once we get a landfill committee started, then there are more hoops that we have to go through. This is the purposely done holding up of situation. Then we decide that we would like to have somebody come as a consultant that could help guide us from our perspective, so we understand more about landfills and everything as well, because we don't get questions answered that we'd ask. Today was supposed to be going through a bunch of questions with asking people. I don't know, did you invite Devin Moose, Mr. Moose and Mr. Helston today, Katie? Because I don't remember that.
I did not.
So you guys are here. I'm the chair of the board. I don't even know that you're coming today. So fine to have you here.
Right, and
But
I
we did not
appreciate it.
know you were coming here today.
I thought,
That to me says there's other things going on behind the scenes that we are not seeing. That's why there's all these questions. That's why there's this cloud of what is going on, what's being hidden, and that we can't say anything. I understand there are negotiations that go on. I get that. Okay. But then we should also agree to what would we want to agree to with a negotiation or not. So if I want to negotiate for something and I have to get it approved by others, the others should be said, what are you willing to give? What are you willing to give to get what it is that you want in the end? Because I may not be willing to give everything up. So this is a problem, and this is why this is happening. And it makes you clouded when the county executive then vetoes the right of the county board to hire somebody when the majority of the board voted to support a resolution to hire a consultant. It's ridiculous that we can't hire a person that we want to with dollars that are in our budget. So I understand, we've met before. I know we've had these different conversations. Then we were told shortly after the resolution passed that we should go ahead and have a meeting with our consultant as soon as possible so we can pass the solid waste plan. That has to be done, We're told once we had to do it, then we're told we didn't have to do it. Now it's sudden we have to do it yet. I don't know, are we going to talk about it today?
We will.
Perhaps not. It's very confusing to us. And if you are on my side, if you're sitting in my seat, you're going to say, what the heck is going on here? Something's going on. Something's going on. Nobody's being open and honest about this. There's two parties here that have different political situations going on. There's you guys who've been around for 116 years. Not quite, but
almost,
been around a long,
almost.
been around a long time, work with a lot of different board members, different speakers. Now it's chair, different executives. So I know that. But when you're sitting on our side and this has been going on, and there is talk outside this room. Some people like to call it, like there's different sabotaging or whatever, conspiracy theories. Oh, listen, if there are people who are not part of this group and they're talking about it, people have questions. They wonder what's going on. And that's why this committee has the opinion that they do. And you know what, really honestly, when you're going to go and defend the executive, when she's never coming and having conversations and making accusations as if this board is this and this board is that. I don't know. Yes, I am. I'm the chair of this board and I will address you when I want. I don't care either, Joe. I don't care either.
Chair O'Gallo.
I don't care either. This is ridiculous when you make the accusation, say that the board members of this, you're making that accusation against all of us.
Point of order,
This
Chair
is a
O'Gallo.
point of order. This needs to be said. We can go ahead and listen to them if we want to. That's the way the whole thing works. We listen to them. They have the person on the other side of the wall who makes all the decisions, and we're going to allow that to happen. We're going to sit in this room and we're going to follow the rules when everything else is going on behind the scenes. And I don't know how many months this has been going on that we haven't gotten answers to what we've asked for. This is ridiculous.
And I think to the chair's point, when we were saying that for the consultants, that it would help us have asked you questions, because it seems like there are still some questions that you're telling us that we can't have answers to. And I would have no way of knowing that.
Very
So
soon. you will.
I'm going to let Member Butler speak. He has a question.
I want to clear up something. I think you're a very nice gentleman. I don't have a problem with you.
Right.
Although sometimes I do feel like I'm part of a big filibuster because the conversations get a little long and detract from, asking questions. See, I have two problems here. One, I just want to be able to go out to bid to get a competitive price for the landfill. That's my main concern. And I think that's the main concern of this committee. So we want to make sure that is. Okay, the second thing is, obviously, there's a reason why you're in that seat, because there's only a handful of people like you. Because it's really an area that is not known. There's not a lot of people who are experts in that. So of course, everyone at this table sitting around here cannot claim to know half as much as you do. But being that legally you're making all these negotiations and you are in the know, so a lot of the information in your head is actual knowledge that you have taken an oath or sworn not to repeat, through law, whatever. So, but if we had a consultant that could sit during a closed session, we could ask pointed questions, who had no knowledge of what you knew, they would be able to answer our questions and give us direction to make us understand how things are done without violating any laws. And that's kind of where we were going with it. Not that we didn't appreciate you or that you weren't an expert. It's just that we need to bridge the gap so that we can make informed decisions. And right now, we can't.
I do want to point out that we do understand that your job is very, very specific, and I appreciate what both of you do for this. But again, I believe Member Butler said it, we are concerned about going out and making sure that this is a fair, process.
May I?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Moose.
First of all, our cards are both here. Please pick one up. You can call either of us at any time. Our cell phones are on there. So I think the only thing we're worried about is confidentiality. And lack of confidentiality at certain points in the project will jeopardize the success of the project. That's what we're concerned about. If there's any questions you have about process, why we designed something, why I'm looking at something one way, and I can't answer it here, call me. I've been very good historically. If it's not rocket, I'd like to say it's rocket science, but it's really not. I can explain it to you pretty quickly.
You always tell me it is.
Member Balich and then Member Newquist.
Yeah, I just don't understand one thing, and I guess we can get this answered now.
Sure.
Why, for me, I'm looking at whether we get a landfill or an existing spot or not. What do we have to do? Do we have to put it on an agenda for the next meeting or go to the full county board or what? That ask Mr. Moose to go out and search out other locations in Will County. Because I think that's important to do, because otherwise we have nothing to compare it to. And there may be, I'm not saying there is, because I don't know, but there's a possibility that we could find a better location where the county could make more revenue and build it easier. We don't know. And so I've been told I'm just saying, what you're doing with environmental engineering and all that has to go into this. You're good at selecting it. So I would suggest that we move forward, and before we do anything, we have Mr. Moose go out and look around and find something that's viable. And if you come back and say, hey, you know what? I can't find anything. Okay, well, then we know, but we don't know nothing right now. We're just going by the fact that the best thing is to go vertical and horizontal. In my mind, like you're talking about, not to pick on you, but you're talking about.
I get picked on all the time, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, you're talking about going horizontal and vertical. And then to me, it's like, okay, well, instead of modest, why don't we go for extensive? And, you might say, well, we'd have a harder time getting it permitted or whatever. Well, it's like if you want to sell me your car, you're going to start off saying you want $1 million, and I drew you down to whatever number the final is. So why don't we just, I mean, there's a lot of questions that I have like that are common sense.
They are.
But I do want to make sure that we get Mr. Moose to go out and check for other locations.
I would not, heeding Mr. Butler's point, I don't want to be a filibuster because I never want to be accused of being a politician, okay? And that's what politicians do. So that's why I recommended that you guys hire him immediately, do that, but I wouldn't put the vertical expansion on hold. I would also task him with dialing in on what he thinks is an acceptable vertical expansion that gets you at least 15 years. Because then 15 added to the 9 you have, it's 24, it gives you some breathing room. I would do those two things.
I'm gonna, go ahead.
Chair has allowed me to
go
make a
ahead.
statement in regard to this. Mr. Helston, that goes back to my understanding of why the committee wanted their own consultant, to help them know what questions they should be asking of the situation. This, not picking on you, but this is the first we've heard in this committee that they should be tasking Mr. Moose with doing something additional. It was never told of them until they brought it up today. And that is the concern that my understanding with some of the members of this committee have, is that they don't know the appropriate questions that they should be asking, which is why they wanted to have their own consultant.
Member Newquist.
Thank you. So I just want to say, first of all, that I don't view this process as political. I mean, regardless of what Chair Ogala said, I do not see it as political. Second of all, this is something you are never probably going to hear me ever say again, but I agree with Steve on this. I mean, what I really care about is knowing, that ours is looking for a solution that is cost effective and gives us the most, landfill for our money, if you will, and I don't know whether that, I mean, is a vertical expansion, is a horizontal expansion, is a completely new site? I don't think any of us knows which of those make the most sense at this point. And I totally defer to your expertise. But even if it's like clear to you, say that a vertical, expansion and then also going the horizontal route makes the absolute most sense. What I would like to see are the possibilities laid out and the pros and cons and why you're recommending a particular course of action.
I agree with you.
That's what I'm saying. You should task him at this point to do. The other thing, going to your point, Mr. Balich's, and I agree with Mr. Balich too, so I got to go see if the sun's going to come out of Mr. Balich. And he's very practical. I give you that. You've always been, in the times I've talked to you, you've been very practical. The other thing on the horizontal, you have to determine whether it's cost effective to try to utilize the 25 to 26 acres by moving the dirt pile and cost. You should have him do a break-even analysis. At what point does it not make sense to entertain doing the horizontal along with the vertical? That's what I would, Devin, would you?
I agree.
Yeah.
So can I make a motion that or how do we do this?
Yeah, so let me defer to, are you one? Okay.
You don't need to make a motion. I think you can just give direction to Mr. Moose as to what you would like him to
That's-
explore on your behalf.
Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, do you want
No, I'm gonna let you said it and I agree and think it's appropriate. I'm just trying to find your number. Your 7? Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So then what we're asking you to do is to prepare of the potential options, a cost benefit analysis and your recommendation as to what makes the most sense and why you think that. And if you're not ready to do that yet, just keep us informed and let us know.
We can-
Because I realize that you may have to answer some questions first before you can
I
go.
think
there.
here's what you want. I think you first want Mr. Moose to do a cost benefit or break-even analysis on whether entertaining a horizontal or lateral expansion on the on-site 25 or 26 acres is feasible. In conjunction with that, you want him to dial in on what he thinks is his recommended vertical expansion. Okay? The
And then
third
you-
thing you want to do is task him to do a site selection process of none of the sites, if either the existing site or any of them contiguous work out. Now, my partner, Mr. Porter, that came here at no cost, he just wanted to come with, so he gets acclimated in the event I can't ever be here when I'm asked to be here. Just pointed out to me, he thinks, but you'd have to ask the state's attorney, he's done a lot of work with governmental entities. He thinks that this committee has to have a voice vote to approve that. So you would have to have a voice vote to approve that.
Question, do we have the budget? I mean, how does that work from a budget standpoint? Do you bill us?
That's why I raised that.
Can you
Yeah.
come up?
Assuming the budget.
Does it fall within our existing budget? Is it an additional line item? Do we? I don't,
What comes out?
I'm on the finance committee, but we don't really see the, individual line items.
Doesn't it?
Go ahead.
Here, I just mentioned
Go ahead,
something.
Mr. Harkey, do you have the answer?
Those tasks would be budgeted under our division,
Under,
the
okay.
solid
from
waste
the-
part of the expansion
Yeah.
work.
So you don't.
Okay, so it comes from
Yes.
that. Okay, so, yeah, there you go. Okay.
No, I
Member Balich, go ahead, and then I'm
I
gonna,
agree with Sherry, her direction, and then Mr. Olson gave all the exact same things I'm talking about. But do we need to put that on an agenda by making a motion to put it on an agenda, or
You should
just a
make,
direction?
you should make a
it
motion.
was just a direction, so
It's direction
The-
by the committee, and upon receipt of the information, you can move forward. And if you don't receive the information,
Okay, so I
wait
just want to
until you
make
get
sure
it.
we're not missing something. That's all.
right, no, that's, okay, and Member Pretzel, go ahead.
Yeah, go backwards a little bit here, but if we expand the current landfill vertically, horizontally, do we also increase RNG revenue?
Yes.
So if we pick a completely different site, a different part of the county, do we give that revenue up?
No. That revenue, for example, a vertical expansion could use this existing RNG plant or an expanded RNG plant, depending on the size of the expansion. An expansion contiguous to the existing landfill may be able to use this existing RNG plant or an expansion of the RNG plant. And depending on where another facility might be, you might or might not, depending on how far away it is, where the pipelines are, and we'll just have to.
Is that why you are looking so closely at the contiguous properties and not other parts of the county?
One of the reasons.
One of the reasons,
Yeah.
doing a contiguous parcel allows you probably on the order of about 60 years of additional life. It gives the county the most money, and it detangles the relationship you have with waste management. It allows you to build a facility contiguous to waste management's facility, let them finish operating and let them continue to do post-closure care at the existing facility. While the new operator then has the opportunity to build a site unencumbered by siting and permitting. That hard part is done. So it allows people from out of state to come in and try and develop operations within this state. That's in the most interest, in my opinion, to the county.
I would agree, because there, Mr. Moose, you weigh in, from where I sit, there are only two major regional landfills in the greater Chicago area. One is Zion, that you and I participated in siting a couple of years ago, and this one. This is an extremely valuable site.
Excuse me.
Long term, you will get a number of bidders. You will get a number of bidders when you RFP this, going to Mr. Butler's question.
Go
So
ahead, Mr. Butler.
it was my understanding that leaving the site as it was still gave the RNG 30, 35 years of continuous gas anyway, not
Probably.
expanding on it. And how long do those RNG plants last usually?
Like any equipment, it's got a limited life depending on the piece of equipment. It's going to need constant maintenance. I can't answer I really was not involved
I
in the
mean,
RNG project.
Would that plant pretty much be restructured or be required to be rebuilt after 35 years?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, so I'm just to put things in perspective on the question, because it was a good question, right? More garbage on that site, more gas.
Right.
But also no garbage, 30 years, and the site has to get replaced, so.
But you have other
Great.
infrastructure there. You've got a pipeline there, a connection there, and it's a valuable utility that you've got there.
Just putting it all out there.
Member Newquist.
Could you make sure that you add the RNG considerations to your cost analysis for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Member Balich.
Yeah, this is a different topic, but they brought it up. Is there a problem with the county being the operator itself? And we would just hire all the exact same union people that are doing the job right now, except we would be the operator. Is that something that is problematic, or is it something that, I mean, that's
It's
kind
been
of,
done around the country. There's one other municipal-owned landfill that's operated by a county within the state of Illinois. It's a small operation. California, Florida, Hawaii are government-owned and operated sites, but it is a special set of expertise that you're going to need. It's a lot of capital equipment that needs to be taken care of. And there's a safety issue too. You're running a competitive business. I think there's more advantage if you get a landfill operator to operate the landfill who has great experience and expertise, but then also brings the hauling to your.
so I think that, I'm just saying this stuff, so I don't have any data to back it up. But I know that the Teamsters are involved with a lot of that, and 150 is involved, and then I forgot the other union, there's another union that's involved. So those people are hiring all union guys
Yeah,
to do the job now.
either way.
So why couldn't the county just say, all right, we want you qualified people? I'll just use Teamsters, for example. You qualified Teamsters that know what you're doing with these landfills. I want to hire you. You come out and you bring your Teamsters and you bring your 150 guys, which is the other?
It'll be
union?
the same,
There's
it'll be the
another-
same union people on the site, no matter who operates the site, but the counties will definitely be exposing themselves to more risk.
Well, there'd be a liability.
Right, much more
But-
risk.
So there's bigger risk, but that's what we would need to find out. Cost first, what's the reward? Risk versus reward. Are we going to make X amount of dollars more? We would definitely have more control. So that's a big issue. And then if we're paying, like we're paying an operator, they're making a profit. I don't know if it's a 5%, 10%, 20%. I have no clue. It might be 50%. We could save all that money if we operate it ourselves. And then the risk, as far as the rewards for the risk, are a lot in favor of us doing it. And I know we can get the qualified union people. So, I mean, I'd like to look into that also, that we become the operator ourselves. Not that we have to. I'm just saying I'd like to see
So you'd like to see it
whether
as
or not
another
it would
option.
work. Because when we first started this thing, back a year ago, when when I was the chairman of the committee, that was what my thoughts were, because I did not the right kind of research, but I did enough research to figure out, and I talked to different union guys, and, I figured out that, hey, we could actually pull this off here and make it very viable and very lucrative for us.
The county.
And the unions were all happy with it when I was talking to them. Now, I don't know if they're even interested now, because I haven't talked to them in well over a year.
So I guess that will be something that we would,
But that's why we
use
need to
later.
talk about that also. Can we be the operator? And what will it take, and how much risk versus reward?
thank you. All right, does anyone else have any other questions concerning Mr. Helston or Mr. Moose? No. Okay, so I have one, I think you guys are out of the hot seat, so you're good. Thank you so much. This is a question that I had, Member Balich wanted me to make sure I brought up. There has been, I guess, documents that may have been shredded that concerned the landfill. bins of documents. From Dean Olson. Okay. Is there any way to get the information from those documents? What was there?
20 bins.
Okay. So,
So there were some comments about records in 2020. So keep in mind, Dean Olson did not leave the county until or resign until July 1st of 2021.
okay.
We do have, in 2020, we had 18 boxes created. In other words, we put them together. That was for permitted sites when I went to records management for permanent retention. The permitted sites for those boxes were the CDT landfill and the Wilmington landfill. And then in 2021, there were another 44 boxes that were created between actually September of 21 to January of 23. Those boxes, some of them went for destruction because they were older according to the Illinois state law. They had to be retained for 3 years after the close and then they could be destroyed. These were documents that were had a some of these documents were as old as 1968. So some of these documents were for permanent retention because they included permitted sites or permitted landfills. Anything that was a permitted site, any of the development and operating and records dealing with monitoring all went for permanent retention to the records office. The state law does allow us to dispose of inspection reports after 3 years after a case is closed or after 3 years they have been completed at a permitted site. So those also went to records management. We had 4 boxes that have gone there because of inspections. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Actually, 7 boxes went for that were permitted sites or that were inspection reports. 7 boxes. They're inspection reports of either open dump sites or permitted site inspections. We also had in that time frame 26 boxes that went for permanent retention for Laraway landfill. That went to records management. Laraway landfill is a very large site. We had a lot of boxes, a lot of records. We then had 2 more boxes that went over for, they were either closed landfills or other, what we just call historically significant sites. Old refineries like the Texaco, Unoven, custom blended oils. We had records. A box of records went for permanent retention for that. And we had another 6 boxes that went for permanent retention that had other various sites that went all the way back to 1968. And that included landfills and other very old open or landfills that weren't permitted, that were no reason to keep on site, but they're permanently recorded. And then we had a box of Citgo refinery documents, groundwater data that was sent over, and another box of other
So I guess my
refinery
point
sites.
is nothing from this landfill has been terminated.
We have 45 boxes from the Prairie View landfill that are currently stored in the RRE division and our division storage room. We have to keep those on site because we never know when our engineer or consultants will need them to look back on them for an expansion. But those have all been retained and they're kept actually in our site, not at records management because we want easy access to them just in case. We do have another 8 boxes sitting on the floor in the department storage room that are either duplicate or miscellaneous files that need to be sent off for shredding. When I took over the division, there was a lot of disorganization, so I've been very diligently working at organizing the division and the department. So it was very necessary. And even before I was in this job or in this position, I was working on organizing files. We had probably another 200 boxes that went even before 2021 to records management, just on landfill files that went over for permanent retention because it was a mess.
That's a
mess.
lot. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, Dave has done an excellent job in managing the division's records. As you can see, he has very detailed records of what we've done. Just like any department in the county, we follow the records retention schedule, which is approved by the state archivist. We just don't throw things into the shredder. We don't throw things in the recycling bin. We follow the law.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. All right, member. Oh, go ahead. All right, so I believe that was all I had. So we're gonna go, sorry, back to, old business, with the, solid waste plan.
Madam Chair, I think that we should table this until we get further information because there's been a lot discussed today and
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table the adoption of the solid waste plan at this time. Probably, I don't know how many members have actually gone through and read the new solid waste plan. There's a lot in there. No one has any, if anyone gets through it and then you have questions next month, we can discuss it. Yeah, and please send any questions you have from the solid waste plan ahead for next month's meeting so we can get on it and answer them right then and there and then try to adopt the solid waste plan. So, so I need a vote on that. Oh, hold on, discussion. Go ahead, Member Butler.
Yeah, so now that we have an avenue to answer some of our questions, that we won't violate any laws or anything, I think we need a little time to explore.
Okay, so we'll need a vote on table it, motion to table next month. To table it till next month. Member Balich made the motion and seconded by Member Butler. And I think that's good. Oh. Sorry.
Butler? Balich?
yes.
Newquist?
Yes.
Pretzel?
Yes.
Van Dyne?
Yes.
Dean Schleppman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Make sure you kind of comb through that this month. And any questions you have or concerns or we think something needs to be different, try to have those beforehand so then we can get those answered. So then we can get the solid waste plan adopted. All right. Any public comment? Yes, you may. Go ahead. Let me turn you on. All right.
I'm going to make a public comment
Go
just so that it's on the record. Since there was no meeting last month in June, the minutes for this committee are up to date.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, I think I said it 3 times, but one more just in case, public comment. All right. I have no announcements at this time. There's no need for executive session, so I need a motion. Oh,
No.
okay. Motion to adjourn.
Move. Second.
All right, and then we are adjourned until next, oh yeah. Go ahead, in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next month is, I can't believe it, August 1st. It'll be, I guess that's the first Thursday of the month. So 11 o'clock, let's start Christmas shopping.
Yeah. I think it's all like,